Welcome to Probate Weekly. And one of the things that come up from time to time is either A, do you have some long lost relative who has some assets you could benefit from? Or B, if you're in a probate, you need to document who the heirs are or should be. And one of the people that do that is Michael Zwick, who's the inheritance investigator. And I've used him and using him as a customer, using him as an administrator, helping us, and also as far as developing leads. So I'm really excited to share with you Michael Zwick. Michael, welcome to our call.
Great to be here, Bill.
I feel like you and I are passing in that you live in Orlando, right?
Right.
You were in Israel, so you're coming back.
Yeah.
And I flew from LA, and I'm in South Florida right now. So maybe we
Okay.
cross paths or something. So
Yeah, they were kind of just missing each other.
thank God we're here.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about it, the basic business inheritance investigation. What's the bread and butter case that you work with on a daily basis?
So it's really a matter, there's no one typical case, but generally speaking, our work is finding people who have money coming to them. And in the context of probates, we deal with cases where they're missing heirs, where there's an estate and sometimes it's the executor who's already starting the estate. For example, we got a call yesterday from an attorney in Philadelphia. He was the court-appointed guardian for an individual who just passed away. And after she got sick and incapacitated, both of her daughters passed away. She held on for a few more years. And so her will, which left everything to your daughter, was worthless. And meanwhile, nobody knows the family, or nobody knew the family. We are looking for them. They say it's worth about $5 million, including her house. And we're looking for the heirs so that they can get their inheritance. Then we also deal with people, Bill, you work on a case, other people who are real estate investors or realtors who identify a house where they want to buy the house, or their client wants to buy a house, and the owners have passed away, or the owner has passed away, and they want to find the heirs so that they can make a deal with them. So that's finding heirs is not something that most executors, or no offense, Bill, realtors or brokers know how to do. So
Yeah.
we're kind of stepping in to fill that void and bring the parties to the table so that they can make a deal, and everybody hopefully walks away happy.
Well, and so let's take the second case for a second. I think most realtors can do a little bit of it poorly.
Mm-hmm.
Like anything else, if you want something done well, you find experts who do that day in, day out at a high level.
Right. That's what we do. I started my professional career as an attorney, but I'm a private investigator, licensed and bonded, and I have staff that, part of what we do is finding people. That's just what we do.
And so while we all have access to certain free resources online, my experience is most of those are just designed to upsell me to a service that I'm not going to use regularly. But as a professional, you have access to those and other more professional resources that help you leverage your time and effort and be more successful ultimately.
Right. So part of it is having those tools, having access to certain databases that frankly cost us a good amount of money and that require screening to show that we have licenses, that we're using it for the proper purposes and stuff like that. We actually are moving our main office this week, and we have to have a site inspection. One of the vendors that we use to get data on people is going to send somebody out there to make sure that we have a secure location. But it's not just having those tools; it's also having the experience of knowing where to look. There are plenty of free resources out there. I'm not talking about just Googling. We're talking about public records like land records, census records, stuff like that. They are free, but it's a matter of knowing where to look and how to look at them.
And then another aspect of it is you can find somebody, but getting them to want to work with you can be a challenge. So I have a case where I reached out, I could get them to work with me. You were able to reach out to them and help them understand the opportunity of these assets And as a result, we were able to get the property listed, get an escrow, and we're like a day or two away from getting it closed.
Right. Right. So we part of the well, actually, let me back up. So I'm just a little tired from jet lag from my trip. We've long said in our company that the biggest competition we have is not another company; it's skepticism. We're calling people and saying, "Hey, great news! We've located money for you, inheritance for you. In exchange for a percentage, we'll tell you, where it is, and we'll get it for you." And we understand that people are going to be skeptical about that, which is why we have invested over time a lot into the image that we present. Part of it is having positive PR. We've been mentioned and quoted and featured in various articles, including the Washington Post, Detroit Free Press, some other major publications. So when we send something to to a potential client, we're going to send them a glossy reprint of one of those articles. That's hopefully going to say, well, if the Washington Post did an article about them, they must be a credible company. We make sure to tout our licenses, the fact that we're bonded, the fact that we have a plus rating with Better Business Bureau. We not that we're a household brand, but we present a very credible front, or not front, but a very credible brand to people when they hear from us. And our people who have been with us, most of our team has been with us for at least 10 years. So they've seen it in terms of the questions people have, the skepticism people have, and how to answer those things and to win their trust.
It sounds so much easier than it is. I literally had a conversation with somebody today, and I was explaining how we found a property. We knew there were 2 heirs. We knew there's a third that passed, which was your client as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then we needed to find who the heirs were to the deceased heir. And we identified who that was. The other people did. And then you went about the process of getting the deceased heirs to agree to the process,
Right.
which was basically to be recipients of this asset. And somebody said to me, well, what's so hard about that? You're calling them and telling them, we found that you're entitled to $100,000, $200,000. Who's not going to say yes to that? And the answer is, it's not that simple.
Right. So, I chuckle that we get, like everybody else, emails from Nigerian princes and people who have money that they want us to handle for them, stuff like that. We get those too. And, they're all scams. We left. There was one time we had a case in our office where we found money for a guy who actually was in Nigeria. And we joked that when we called him, he would say, "Oh, great! Just another American guy calling me, telling me I have money coming to me." So, but it's probably people are hearing of scams all the time, whether it's social media, whether it's Bernie Madoff, whatever the case might be, and people are, like I said, they're skeptical. So it's not just a matter of calling them saying, "Hey, we got money for you," because they hear that all the time.
And so, for those of you listening, this is really, I think, one of the learning opportunities to realize that just because you find an heir who's entitled to money doesn't mean they're going to send you flowers, thank you, hug you, kiss you, and sign whatever paperwork they need to. It's not like that at all, because there's increasingly disconnection of people. We're all separate pieces in a database now. We're not in communities. We don't know people who know people. And there's so many scams going on all the time, and it's more difficult. Let me just reset real quick where we are and who we are and what we're doing today. So our guest today is Michael Zwick, and I'm going to ask him about this, but Okay, is that looping there?
I'll get with you now. I got a little but now I'm here with you again.
So I'm not going to share the screen then. Michael Zwick is on LinkedIn, is the best way to reach him. LinkedIn.com/in/ Michael Zwick. I'll put it in the chat box. But he really works LinkedIn, I think, as his primary marketing tool, at least from my experience with him. That's in the chat box. And he's a proprietor of I just dropped the name of the company. I'm so sorry. I just I put in Michael and you pop up my email and I don't really even know the name of the company. AssetsInternational.com.
Correct.
That is, among other things, they do investigations for inheritances on behalf of attorneys and estates. That's how I've used him as a client. This is probateweekly.com. We do this every Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, today in Eastern time, because I'm in Florida. So a little different situation for us. So you can sign up and come to the Zoom call and ask questions, participate at probateweekly.com, or watch past episodes at episodes.probateweekly.com. Love to have you participate there as well. And if you want to find more of me, you go to my link tree, linktr.ee/Bill Gross. I love the programs and all the places that I'm found. And so again, Michael's not an advertiser, or really for me, has been a great resource and colleague in the industry. And just to kind of set the table a little bit, when I set out and formed this podcast 3 years ago plus, I had 3 goals. I wanted to learn myself, and by bringing guests that I would learn from. Second, I wanted to get better at working with vendors that can help me with a business. And third, I wanted to network to generate business. And I found that I need to make those activities on a weekly basis. Hence, I created Probate Weekly. And Michael really ticks off all 3 of those for me personally, in that I met him. I forget how, but I think it must have been off of LinkedIn, knowing you.
Yeah, I think it was LinkedIn.
We knew somebody who knew somebody.
Yeah.
And I learned so much about it. And then as a vendor, I've used his company's services or arranged with him, referred to him, cases that we needed to find heirs. And I have one ongoing with him right now, and lead generation, and third being a lead generation I work on. And so for all of you today, I really think this is a chance for you as well to learn to be better, create more value for your attorneys and your families, as well as to learn about the business to be more effective. So let's talk a little bit about how you find heirs for investigation, or why somebody might use you. Let's talk a little bit about who you work with and how you get involved. What percentage of your business is referred to you by attorneys?
I'd have to look it up to tell you the truth. So, some of our work comes from our own good old-fashioned shoe leather of hunting down money that's sitting in government treasuries, and then we go find the owner. So it could be state unclaimed property, it could be money sitting in other government treasuries, such as counties, cities, whatever, in the form of uncashed checks. It could be money left over from foreclosure proceedings and whatnot. But we're definitely getting an increasing number of a percentage of our work coming from probate attorneys, or the executors themselves, or we're also doing now a growing number of these real estate transactions, like we talked about before, like the one that we're working on, Bill, where you identified a house that I have no idea whether it's you or someone you represent wanted to buy it, and knew that the owner had passed away and needed to find the heirs to make the deal. So we're getting more and more of those inbound leads coming to us, rather than us just working the stand claim property stuff.
And so you use LinkedIn as a way to meet relationships of people that could for business. Really, it seems to me, as your primary social media outlet.
Social media, definitely. I also post on Facebook. Facebook, I know we use more for personal stuff, but I also do throw in some work stuff, whereas LinkedIn is more work stuff with a little bit of just personal stuff. And even the personal stuff, sometimes I will kind of somehow tie into or put a reminder as to what I do. So if someone is seeing that for the first time, and they're like, yesterday I did a post. It was we just come back from 2 weeks in Israel. It was a really inspiring trip, and I posted about being there, and I got one of the biggest viewerships ever in terms of the number of views, the number of comments and likes and stuff like that. And I wrote nothing about my work. So today, the trip gave me fodder for a whole number of posts over the next probably 2 weeks to do. So my one today, was prompted by something that I saw when I was in Israel, but I did make sure to tie it into what I do, so as it's a reminder of my occupation, so that hopefully if someone is seeing it, they'll remember, like, oh, that's what he does, and call me if they need my services.
So is your tactics on LinkedIn more staying in touch with people you know, or do you also do new lead generation there?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Is your activity on LinkedIn more for keeping in touch with people you already know, or is it also more focused on new lead generation?
Well, I mean, you never know who's going to see it, because one of the things about LinkedIn as opposed to Facebook, and I use those two because I really don't use any other social media. I don't use Instagram or TikTok. Is that for example, Bill, if you are commenting or liking the post by I see Courtney is here, so I assume maybe you and Courtney are connected on LinkedIn. So if Courtney has a post, Bill, and you comment on that post, I might see that in my feed of Bill comments on Courtney's post, and that might prompt me to look at the post, read it, and connect with Courtney. Facebook doesn't have that. If you comment on the post of something that I'm not Facebook friends with, I'm never going to see that in my feed. So I get, for some posts, I get plenty of comments and likes from people who are second degree connections. Sometimes they do follow me, but sometimes it's just a matter of I appear on their radar because a mutual connection has interacted on the post. So part of it is the people I already connected with. Part of it is every day I'd say I'm probably getting connection requests or sending out connection requests, or both. And some are just coming from people who remain second degree connections, but they've seen me and are interested in what I have to do.
You set a certain amount of time every day, a certain calendar amount of time, or just as inspires you, or as you have free time? How do you manage that?
So I try to post every day where I'm working and I'm not totally booked up. But sometimes I just don't have the inspiration or the energy. For a while, when I first got active on LinkedIn in the summer of 2020, I went probably a solid 2 years of every weekday, unless I was traveling or I was tied up all day, I was posting 5 days a week. I now don't do it as much, simply because I am tied up more on calls for a variety of things that I just don't have time. Every so often, I just can't think of something to post. Like I said, then there are times where I just have a whole well of information, well of ideas. Like I said, coming off this Israel trip, today's post was about just kind of throw it out there. We were at Machane Yehuda, the big marketplace in Jerusalem, which is amazing to see, and we did a really cool foodie tour. And our guide took us to a place that all they sell are baked potatoes. And first of all, it was amazing. If you're ever in Jerusalem, you got to go there. But also, you think like, wow, that's such a limited niche. So I tied into, well, I'm in a niche business. So I kind of tied my personal experience, that fun event, to what I do. So I made it relatable and then kind of hooked it in. And I like to think that's a gift I have on LinkedIn, is taking the most obscure things you would never connect to what I do and somehow bringing them together to make it. I'm not just writing essays on finding missing heirs or probate, because frankly that gets kind of boring and it's kind of dry. One of the things I found on LinkedIn is you got to let your personality and who you are shine through to get people to pay attention to you in the first place.
One of the things I've noticed, ask you, I know the answer, is that you, and from explanations, this is all your content. right? And I think a lot of real estate agents make a fatal error of buying content and reposting what somebody else has written for them, because number one, who wants to read that? And number two, it doesn't create any color to the relationship. Whereas you are really focused on, I think, being authentic, sharing who you are, what you do, what's important to you. What is it that inspired you to take that tactic, which I think is the right road, versus so many people we see, I think, in the other direction where they're reusing somebody else's commercial material?
I think it's simply of having spent just a little time on LinkedIn and knowing that people who are just having somebody in the background create their material and basically use it as a brochure was not engaging me at all. I had because, like, for example, probate attorneys are a dime a dozen. There are, I don't know how many thousands and thousands of probate attorneys are out there, but as with any business, you want to do business with the people that you like and people that you trust. And I can't get to know anybody if all they're doing is having some virtual assistant create some shiny, post, in terms of a picture of everybody looks perfect in front of a perfectly manicured lawn. There's a reason my screen and my background is blurred, is because behind me is a mess. And that's natural. I think people can relate to that. I'm not going to show it, but I think people can figure out that it's a little chaotic. And people are trusting me, whether it's the executors that are trusting me to track down the heirs themselves that are hiring me. We do some work for very large companies, Fortune 500 companies and major nonprofits to recover their unclaimed property. And they want to know that they're dealing with a real person that they can trust. So, that's who I am. I mean, as you can see, I wear a t-shirt. I'm not trying to dress up to impress anybody in that regard. I think my work speaks for itself. And, that's just how it is. I mean, I see there are some probate attorneys who will post things, and I can tell pretty quickly that they probably have no idea what's being posted on their profile. They don't respond to comments. They don't respond to to messages, and I don't take it personally because there's no personal thing there to begin with. It's but I think they're wasting their money on paying someone to do this work that all they're doing is just putting up, for lack of a better term, fluff pieces.
It's funny you say, because I would see attorneys who would hire videographers, and I know spend $3,000 to $5,000 and post a couple of videos that look perfect. They're all dressed up, perfect lighting, maybe in their conference room, not how you'll ever see them. And they got 3 views on each of the 5 videos.
Yeah.
And I would say to them, let me just interview you and let's just talk. And I can get them 50 or 100 views on my YouTube channel. And they'd ask me, what should I wear? And I would just say, wear what you wear when you meet a client.
Yeah.
Now, if that's a suit and tie, it's a suit and tie. But if that's a t-shirt, it's a t-shirt. That's how they're going to meet you.
Right.
That's all it is. And I think now in your case, you're smart to hide behind your wife and 3 kids, because if I had as good looking and big a family as that, I have 1 daughter, but she's married. So I'm hiding behind my grandkids now. So I'm trying to overcome generations rather than the numbers. But I think when you share that family, it sends a subtle message that this woman and these kids trust me to take care of them. I can take care of you too.
Right. Well, first of all, they make me look good.
Yes.
But
Yes.
like I said, it also there is the trust, the implicit trust thing, but it also goes back to, it shows them a real person. People relate to people who have real lives. I'm not sure how much someone's going to trust someone who always looks perfect. Not that I even have hair, but if I did, it probably wouldn't always be perfectly combed, or has like that $1,000 suit with the tie with the perfect knots. people see that, and yes, there are certain occasions where someone wants that person. Maybe if you're going to, go on trial and that's the attorney that you are representing you, but even then, because frankly, I used to practice law, and I used to do criminal defense, and I worked mostly in Oakland County, which is a suburb of Detroit, and the most effective and probably feared prosecutor in Oakland County was a guy who didn't have the greatest fashion sense, and he had these thick glasses, but the guy was a killer prosecutor. Not that he wasn't a nice guy outside, but if he was coming in to the courtroom, defense attorneys knew they had to be on their A game every single time. So the perfect appearance is not necessarily something that's going to win everybody over.
Yeah, I think you're right. Not that there's anything wrong with your appearance or mine, but I think being genuine, I think, is the key point. And just quick housekeeping, we're live streaming this. If you're on the YouTube, a couple things. One, love to have you put your contact info in, network. Let's do some business together. Tell us how to get a hold of you. Tell us where you are and what you're looking for. And then if you're watching on the live stream, we're live streaming this on Zoom, on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thanks to Michael. Feel free to ask questions there. I'm monitoring the comment section there, and either I'll get them live if I'm paying attention here, or we'll catch them afterwards and route them as appropriate. So the purpose of this call from the beginning was to be participative. I know the more that you participate, the more you learn. And I want this to be about me. I want it to be about all of us together as a team. So I'd love to have you participate and ask questions. And so we'll go back a little bit to the part about the inheritance, which I think is important. So let's talk about finding heirs. When you get contacted by executors, these are people who have to make a certain due diligence at a minimum to find heirs. Right. Theoretically, they could not want to find heirs because it might lower their inheritance. But you have a responsibility at some level, and the executors often need some sort of report to say, we tried to find people. Do you provide such a report? Do you provide any kind of documentation of what you've done? And to the best of your ability, there aren't any other errors, or maybe there are that you can identify, or is there any kind of reporting back about the process?
So it really depends on which state the probate is taking place in. Some states are much more strict about the due diligence than others. Excuse me for a second. For Michigan, for example, is very lax. If the executor says, "Hey, we just don't know where the person is," most judges just take them at their word. Then there are other states like New York that are, of course, can be very rigid in requiring proof of all the work that's been done to find missing heirs. I should add that for most cases, that the not finding missing heirs doesn't always increase the amount that the executor or the other heirs are going to get. So, for example, if the maternal heirs are all known, so I mean they're getting half of the estate, and the paternal heirs are getting the other half, but the maternal heirs don't know who the paternal heirs are. It's not like they're going, "Oh, we can't find them, so we now will get 100% of the estate instead of 50%. The court will just set aside the 50% for the missing heirs on the paternal side to be claimed at whatever later date they come forward. So yes, there are cases where there is that lying. We had a case once a number of years ago in Michigan where there were three children of the deceased and two sisters and a brother, and the sisters claimed they had no idea where their brother was. His share got set aside, but Michigan has a unique rule where after a certain amount of time, the non-missing heirs can claim the money of the missing heir. We wound up finding that brother, and we got him his money, and his two sisters were arguing, well, he should not have received. They basically didn't quite admit that they lied when they said they didn't know where he was. I mean, they clearly did, but they just kind of fell back on the argument of, well, he doesn't deserve it because he was a bad son. And the court said, well, that's frankly not your call to make. So in terms of whether we provide a report, sometimes we will, sometimes we're not allowed to, because a lot of courts want to get that report from a disinterested party. And if we are the ones working on this and we're getting paid by the heirs that we bring in, we're not a disinterested party. So we'll often bring in an outside genealogist who will prepare reports, and we're not paying them, but they get paid out of the court. So this way we have we don't have a exact financial relationship with each other, and they'll present that report.
A really good question from regular listener Chris. Are there any particular markets that you see more probates, probate activity growing or declining? Do you see any areas in particular that are particularly attractive?
Not so much. I mean, I'm not seeing any particular trend as to where things are. I think, we're just seeing a rise in general because people are just moving more, but I don't necessarily see any particular area where geographic or otherwise where there's a rise.
Yeah, it just seems like overall it's a increasing activity. Courtney Rollins, regular caller, great poster of content in our group, as well as recently betrothed. If you follow on the Facebook, you're going to see all kinds of great content. The party you missed was the party of the century. Courtney, you're muted. What's up, man?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. I had a question here. So if I'm a real estate investor or an agent and I bring a client or executor to you, how do you generally stay in contact with the real estate agent or the investor, or is that more the investor's job to stay in contact with the executors as the ball gets rolled or pushed down the road as you do your job?
So once we take it on, we'll regularly update whoever it is that brought us into the matter, and obviously sometimes they will reach out to say, hey, they might want updates more frequently than we give them. We might say, okay, we'll update you every few weeks, and they say, I want an update every week. So we'll tailor it to them. We don't get annoyed when someone says, hey, I haven't heard from you in a few weeks. And partly is because there's nothing really to report. Sometimes we do a lot of what's called running to stand still, to quote the U2 song, where we'll get a lead on, okay, this is where the person is. Then we got to order documents that might take us to the next step. For example, just like hypothetical, if the owner of the house we knew he had one brother, but we don't know much about the brother's children to find that those kids were niece and nephew, we might need to order that brother's death certificate. Ordering the death certificate, someplace we can get the next day. Sometimes we got to wait a month. And in that month, there's really nothing we can do, or very little we can do. So to us, we're going, okay, we ordered the death certificate, we'll wait for him. Someone who's not so familiar with what we're doing might call us after a week going, hey, what's going on? So sometimes there's just nothing we can do, and we're at the mercy of bureaucracy a lot of times. So, and then once we find the people, then we're often the point of contact between the heirs and whoever it is that has the money, whether it's the executor or the buyer or whatever, to bring them together to hopefully work out a deal where everyone can walk away happy.
Got you. Now, there's some cases where you're like, hey, I'm just going to let you guys know this is just not worth the time. For instance, I just had a case that was about to close, but finds that there may be 30 to 40 heirs possibly, and 3 of some of the best closing attorneys in North Carolina were like, hey, Courtney, really I don't think it's worth it to you to even try to track these folks down. Have you ever come across that where you're like, it's just
all the time? And we actually I just had a conversation yesterday with somebody who a real estate investor that Bill had introduced to me, and they had 3 cases, 2 of which are worth their while. The other one, not so much. It's the equity in the house is just not that much. And I explained to him, I said, if by some chance we find there's only one heir to the estate, yeah, it's worth it to us. But if we have to start signing every year and there are 10 heirs, no, it's not worth it for us. And he understood that. It's just it's just a matter of how much work has to go into it versus the upside. So it's like anything else.
Courtney, what you're talking about is very common in the South, in particular, I think, where people had large families and they got land. And I believe freed slaves were given like 40 acres or something. But then they had kids, and those kids had kids. And so there's raw land that might have 30, 40 years, not even a house. And then there are investors who buy up those interests. And on one hand, it looks predatory. They're buying the interests, taking advantage of the family. On the other hand, there are family members who get nothing because it's not worth doing anything with 30 people. And that's both a problem and opportunity for us to work on, is how can we make that accumulation more efficient? We don't want to drive Michael crazy, but we also, if we can find a way to do it profitably and deliver value to our customers and make some money in the process, that's the goal of the whole process. So I'm not saying I have an answer to that, but I'm saying that is a problem. And I had the same thing in LA from time to time on houses, but it's a problem on one hand and an opportunity on the other.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thanks, man. Thanks so much.
Okay.
And you go back to your answers, Michael, we talked about follow-up. Literally, as a customer, I've had a case where I've emailed you guys, and you sent a certificate. I'm sorry, the death certificate, and I emailed you like a week later. What's the status? And the answer was, well, it takes 4 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, there are some offices, like I said, where we could order it and we'll have it the next day, or
right.
Or even depending on circumstances, have a runner go in and like someone actually go into the office. With COVID, a lot of offices don't have that option anymore, where you can walk in and do it. There's some offices, not just vital records offices, but courts that restricted people coming in, even though COVID is no longer the issue, just never went back to it. So it really just depends on the jurisdiction.
And on the flip side, also, I've literally got a comment from you today on a case we're working on. I haven't replied to you yet because I'm on vacation. I'll get back to you tomorrow or Tuesday. But so just for all those who are listening, I want to say I am not just interviewing Michael because he's a fun guy. I'm a customer, and I believe in a service, and I want to support him to be successful, and I will help you guys be more successful. And that's why we're interviewing him here today. Christopher points out the term used in the South for these properties that with multiple heirs, particularly on land, is called heirs property. That's a phrase in many states. And it was a subject of a 60 Minutes investigation, actually, which I think took a very negative look at that practice of buying those interests. And I think that may be unfair, but it's certainly worth looking into, and particularly prominent, I think, in the South, as the older generations, passing on. Okay, other questions? I don't see any on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube. Any other questions for Michael? Again, he works with these cases all the time. He's working with your customers if you're a real estate agent. He's working with the beneficiaries of your cases. These are the people who might complain that you're not selling the house for enough. He's talking to them, or his staff is talking to them. So here's a chance to really participate with somebody that I think that can help you. Michael, one of the questions we got asked by Christopher is, for somebody looking to do business with you, what can they do besides sending you referrals? What's the challenge in your business that people can help you with? I know personally my answer is promote you, but what else can people do to help you with your business, to be available to you when you have real estate agents and different markets to work with?
Yeah, frankly, you just nailed it as the promotion. That certainly helps. One of the challenges we have is getting records from local government offices. Some of them are not nearly as easy to deal with as others. So knowing people who are across the country who might be able to help just go into a court and get a copy of a record for us. in this day and age, you'd be surprised at how many still require us to not only mail in a check to get it, but sometimes we'll say, you have to walk into our office to come get these things. So I wish I had a whole army of people out there that could.
Let's be your army.
What?
Hey, if you want to be in Michael's army, raise your hand. Say I'm in Michael's army.
I appreciate that. I like, example. I once needed documents or just to find out if there was a probate estate for someone in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and they said, so usually we can send in a request for records or call. They said, so the only way you can do is you have to come to our office in South Spartanburg. And fortunately, I realized I have a friend that lives in Spartanburg, and she's like, oh, I'll go there. Like, I'm downtown every day anyways, I'll just go into the court for you. But sometimes doesn't happen. So it always helps. And every time every so often when I run into those situations, I'll go onto LinkedIn because I have so many connections, and I'll see, okay, who do I know that lives in that town or near that town that can do that for me? And I'm obviously willing to pay anyone for their time. I'm not looking for a free ride from anybody. So the more people I know, the better, because that just can help me out in that regard. But it's also just, getting the word out that if people are looking to buy properties and they need, let our name out. When I was talking yesterday with the gentleman that I mentioned, that Bill, you introduced me to, what I said is, okay, I'd like to know where can I meet more people who might be running this situation, whether it's in online forums or actual in-person conferences, to go. And I'm a pretty friendly guy. I like networking. To some extent, I do like travel. After all, it gets tiresome, so I got to take a break. But always looking to find where are those communities or those people that could utilize our services.
Well, it sounds like if you run a Facebook group or a network of real estate agents, Michael would like to talk to them and share what he does, make himself available. And I would say to you, Michael, I've got people all over. So if you need somebody in Spartanburg, South Carolina, I know people. I'd love to be a call. If you don't know a guy, you know a guy who knows a guy. So,
yes, my wife and I, our kids laugh at us because we always seem to know a guy somewhere.
Yes.
And especially like I said, I was in Israel for 2 weeks, and my kids just laughed because how many times I'd run into somebody I knew. I ran into someone who I was good friends from summer camp, so 40 years ago, and I've only seen him, I think, twice since then. I happened to run into him while we were out having ice cream. It just randomly ran into people, but that happened. Then we came back on Tuesday night. We went from the airport to a restaurant to get some dinner because we needed enough food in the house, and just saw someone there I knew. So my kids know that I know people, but sometimes I do run out of things. If I may take the initiative, I see somebody asked in the chat, what geography does I need assistance walking in? If anybody's in San Antonio or anywhere nearby, please reach out to me. That court in I don't want to butcher, I think Bahar or Behar, however you pronounce that county, is the biggest, pardon my French, pain in the butt in terms of getting probate documents, and we do need a lot from there. So if you know anybody in San Antonio, send them my way, please.
Fantastic. Shout out to San Antonio, Texas. Well, Michael, look, I know you just got back. It's late where you are here on the East Coast. I really appreciate making time for us again. You've been on the show before, and so many people learn from you and benefit from you. And I just think there's so much untapped opportunity for more that I really want to urge everybody who's listening today to consider. When you find you need heirs, here's a professional that does this. And when you have attorneys that need heirs research, here's somebody who does this on a regular basis. So, Michael, on behalf of everybody on the call, and those who are going to watch this, thank you so much again for your time. And thank you for your service. And thanks for the work you do for me as a professional. I really appreciate it.
It's great to be here. Have a good night.
Have a good night. And for the rest of you, this is Probate Weekly. I'm at Bill Gross Probate. We do this every Thursday night at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern. Tonight's Eastern time. I'm here in Florida. We do it live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And then you can watch past episodes at episodes.probateweekly.com. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a great week. We will be live the next 2 weeks as well, even though it's between Christmas and New Year's and right after New Year's. Those are days that I'm working. I'll be available. Hope to see you then. If not, we'll record it. We'll catch you afterwards. Thank you so much, everybody. Nice seeing you, Javier.